So I first met Seb a few years back when I went to Sussex University to tour the quantum computer lab, which was very exciting. And I didn't realize that we had this amazing technology being developed on our doorstep. And a lot of people that I speak to haven't realized this either. So I'm really excited to share the story with you guys today. So Sebastian, who is he? He is the co-creator of the first scalable quantum computer blueprint, which invented a pioneering approach to building the life-changing million-qubit machine. Does anyone know what that means? No, we're going to find out today. Seb's going to do that for us. So combining his expertise in physics and his commercial experience as well, he has been able to make exciting developments at Universal Quantum, raising millions of funding to date. So please give it up for the brilliant Sebastian Weidt. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
All right, you've got a lot explaining to do today, I think.
I'll do my best.
From chatting to you before, I know that you've got a really interesting story as to how you got to where you are today, but I really wanted to start off by talking about this technology because I think let's set the context. What is quantum computing? Big question, I realize that. We're going to start off with something simple. Hopefully we can do that. Yeah.
Yeah, we can do that.
And
sure.
It'll be really
Easy.
interesting to start off with like, what is it, but why is it important? What problem is it trying to solve and how does it fit in to this world? Give us the summary.
Okay. Okay, so quantum computers, so what are they? It's basically a completely new machine that will do certain computations much, much faster than anything we could do today. Now, you may wonder, why is that important? You know, your iPhone or Android phone, phone is perfectly reasonable at doing what you'd like to do, but actually what you find is that computationally, we can't solve most of the problems that people would like to solve. So if you look into drug discovery, understanding climate change, and so on, we have a huge limit in understanding what's going on there. And that's because even the most powerful supercomputers aren't good enough. Now, we've got AI experts in the audience as well, and they will also tell you, like, please give us more computational oomph, right? That's really what we need. That's where quantum computers come in. Quantum computers basically are able to solve some of these problems that would take, the most powerful supercomputer 1 million years to solve. They may do it in minutes. So we're not talking about a machine that just makes something twice as fast or 100 times faster. It's something completely transformational, which, if you believe the experts, would change our lives on an amazing level. And we'll talk about some of the applications maybe in a little bit as well. Now, to go a bit geeky, I shall explain now how these machines can do that, right? And I'll try to keep that simple. And it's all in the word quantum. Now, you may have heard about quantum before. Little bit of a buzzword that sometimes gets thrown around. But what is this weird thing? And basically what quantum is a framework, a physics framework that describes the very, very small, right? So basically, if I was to zoom into this table in front of us here right now, and you go into the atomic scale, everything that happens in that weird quantum world is described by quantum. And it turns out some really strange things happen there. So for example, an atom that's there right now can be in 2 places at the same time. That's pretty odd, right? Unfortunately, I can't be in 2 places at the same time. And that's because, where we are at the sort of size scale that we're at, everything's classical physics. You kick a ball, you know what's going to happen, sort of thing. But on the very small scale, this really strange stuff goes on. And what quantum computers do is they harness this weirdness and turn it into a useful technology. And there's other quantum technologies out there that you will at some point get exposure to, new sensors, new communication devices, all based on this weird quantum thing that's there. And a quantum computer is really the sort of holy grail of this whole quantum technology thing that will hopefully give us a new way of doing computations much better.
Amazing. That was brilliant. I think so essentially it's taking a physics concept that exists in real life and we're applying it to data processing and computers. So
yeah, actually do something useful for you guys, right?
Right.
Rather than just sitting in a lab and playing around with nice equipment, actually, doing something really cool.
So give us an example of a real life case study of how this could do something really, really exciting.
Yeah, sure. So something I'm really passionate about is drug discovery. If you are the sort of person who's passionate about doing something really good for people, I consider myself in that category. the drug space is most certainly an area where you can move the needle significantly. And that's an area where quantum computers should hopefully do a lot. If nowadays, and I don't know if we have any drug discovery experts in the audience, they can correct me if I'm wrong, but really, nowadays, if someone develops a drug, it takes a long time to get this to market, because really what they need to do is a lot of trial and error. They mix a lot of stuff together, see if it works. If not, they start again. And the reason is that they don't understand really, or they can't simulate what happens on the molecular scale. They don't know what happens if we put two things together. What does that chemical reaction really look like? So there's a computational problem there. So it takes 10 years to give you a new drug. When you think about quantum computers, they naturally love to understand what happens on the molecular scale. They should be able to help us understand what these chemical reactions are doing, give us some predictions on that, and so on, and therefore give you a tool, the drug discovery person, to develop new drugs, help cure Alzheimer. There's a whole range of sort of applications out there that people associate to quantum computing. There's others. You can go across the sectors. In AI, naturally, how quantum computers work is similar to the underlying mathematics of machine learning, so they should be able to help in that space. And with that, I mean, look how many applications there are for machine learning and AI. So again, it's an enabling technology that should help us in all sorts of different sectors. Climate change, another one, help understand the weather a bit better, get a better forecast out of it. That's not bad, right? So develop new materials and so on. Now, the other thing I should say at this point is that I would argue that we don't even understand all of the applications yet. And I think that's the other really exciting thing. We already know it's worthwhile doing it. It's pretty big already. But it's kind of similar to, go back to the sort of starting point of conventional computing, where, we knew some applications, but it's taking a long time, and we're still uncovering things that these sort of machines can do. We're going through a similar phase in a way, and still uncovering new applications for these machines. But we need to build them first. And that's kind of the hard bit.
And that's a really important thing as well, I think, because at first when I went to visit the lab and look at it, it's not fully, so nobody right now has a fully working quantum computer. Is that correct?
No, we do. We have quantum computers.
It's working,
well, yes.
but you can't apply it to the real...
They're not big enough yet.
Where is the technology? What can it do, and what can it not yet do?
So the good thing is that these machines work. So we're no longer in this sort of weird physics theory dream world that we often find ourselves in. It's actually shown this stuff works, but it's not big enough yet. And this is where we talk about... When you say
big enough, what do you mean? Like it can't process enough data, or...?
So this is where I throw one technical word at you, which is the qubit.
Okay.
Right? And that's a good thing to learn about, I think, which is the analogous to the bit in a conventional computer. Right? That's how all of our information is stored, in bits. Right? And a bit is 1 and 0. That's these 1 and 0 strings that you get. A quantum computer, very smart naming here, is a quantum bit that we have there. And these quantum bits can also be 1 or 0. But because they live in this strange quantum world, they can be 1 and 0 at the same time. Right? And that's where our minds get blown, and we kind of move on and just accept that for a second. But the game here is to have more of these qubits. Now, currently, if you go around, you look at the state-of-the-art quantum computers, stuff we have, IBM has these sort of machines, Google, lots of people really trying hard to make this technology work. They work with tens of qubits. That's kind of the sort of state-of-the-art we're at right now. The sad story here is that to get to the sort of applications that I'm really passionate about, that I shared with you, you need millions of qubits, right? So the big question at the moment is tens of qubits, well done, but how the hell do you get to millions of qubits? And that's where universal quantum comes in. That's where this blueprint for this million qubit machine that we talked about comes in, because we feel we've got a really good handle on getting to that scale.
Got you.
Whereas other people may struggle a bit more.
Okay, right. Yeah, my next question was going to be about where are you guys, and that's okay. So you guys have that blueprint. That's great. And for anybody who's really interested to know what it actually looks like, because when I came to it, I was like, what does a quantum computer look like? I wish we kind of had a picture here. It's basically like a room full of wires.
A bit of a mess. Yeah, sure.
A big room full of wires with a lot of wires.
Yeah.
I remember we had to kind of make sure the lasers didn't get our eyes or something like that, didn't we? Because you have to not lean down.
Kind of similar to the ENIAC machine, it kind of filled a room at the time. Doesn't look that dissimilar to that, I guess.
So realistically, in your from what you've done so far, how many years or how long is it going to take until we get to this million qubit machine?
Yeah, the question people always ask is, I'm not going to join the club of people who would put some sort of estimate out there. I mean,
but are we looking at like a couple of years, tens of years?
No, we're trying so hard to get as close as possible this decade. I think it would be really nice to do it within 8, 10, 12 years sort of thing. Basically, what I would argue is it's the sort of time scale where it's time to really get excited about this and think about this, right? Because if we think commercially, honestly, this is not just something, I'm going to buy a product. This will change so much, right? So that's where it's, and that's why so many big companies are getting involved now, because they're realizing it can pick one of these, it can take one of these big players out, right? If someone misses the train of quantum or quantum computing, and some competitor comes up with this grand application and knows how to use it, once these machines are available, they're miles ahead. Right? It's such a transformational technology, you can't really ignore it. Most people can't ignore it, who's kind of commercially minded there.
And I mean, it sounds like one of those things that whoever has the most money will be able to make the use of these kind of things in the future.
I disagree.
No?
Why?
Tell us why.
Otherwise, I could pack up right now, because we're going up against a Google and an IBM, and they have near infinite money, right? I mean, we can probably agree on that.
Yeah. So how? Yeah, tell us about that.
So but we're still here. So and I think this stuff is so hard that you can't just buy your way out of it. There's lots of different ways people are trying to build these machines. Google, IBM, they're doing a different thing. Well, we're recording here. It's an interesting approach, but we have a different view. But I think, so it's talent, and it's the approach that you're following that is really key here. Money is the enabler, for sure. Without money, we can't do this. This is really expensive. But I don't think we're at this sort of stage where Google can just say,
just pour money into it,
pour money into it, and it'll be fine. It's not, because look where they are right now. They've tried for a while, and they're not really making that sort of amazing progress, right? So there's clearly room for, a different way of looking at it.
That's really exciting. I love that.
It's cool, for sure.
And so who are the biggest players in this, if you were to map it out?
Depends what you mean big in terms of...
I don't actually know.
I mean, IBM is big, so if you want to...
Like, who's the closest to doing something, applying it to things?
Us, of course.
Great.
But I mean, honestly, the interesting thing is, and IBM, for example, is doing a really nice job in making these machines available to you. You can go right now, if you search for, I'm doing some advertising for them, but if you search for IBM Quantum Experience, you can log into a quantum computer right now on your phone. Right?
What can you do with it?
You can run some quantum algorithms, so the analogous to a normal, basically put quantum in front of everything, and you quantum works.
Anything in quantum form.
So you can run, you can play with these machines, you can get a feeling for how they operate, what they can do. But the truth just is they don't do anything useful for people outside the space of maybe learning how to run a quantum algorithm. And that's really the problem. They don't give you a new drug. They don't do anything meaningful in that sense. But it's a great engagement tool. It's great for you to learn how to program on these machines, which is a whole different thing, right? And this is where this training up comes in. This is why companies are getting involved right now, because they know they need 5, 6, 7 years to train up their workforce to even know how to use these machines properly. Right?
There's going to be a huge skills gap there. And how have you found for your company, Universal Quantum, around the skills stuff? Obviously, you lecture as well, right, around this kind of topic, or do you still do that?
No, so I've got a faculty position at Sussex, but I don't teach.
Okay, you don't teach.
I love teaching, but I didn't have time for that anymore, unfortunately. But the skills gap is a problem, for sure.
How will we fix it?
Everyone's seeing that. Well, I think, so the way we're fixing it is by being just a really cool employer. I think that's really important. It's not always about having the biggest salaries. It's also about just having a really great environment and getting excited about the tech that we're actually building. And I think the sort of people we seem to attract are people who, they're aligned with our vision, right? They don't want to build something where they're not convinced that will actually get you to this high impact point. And I think we can make a really nice claim on having that sort of, that pathway ahead of us. It's going to be hard. Everything's hard, right? It's going to be really, really hard. But, why not try it with that sort of, great goal ahead? And I think that attracts a lot of people to try it and go out on a bang, sort of thing.
That's really exciting.
But there's no doubt about it that this will be an issue, and this will be an increasing issue going forward, because there's a lot of people involved in the space right now, and there aren't that many quantum physicists, there aren't that many the sort of engineers we need but we'll deal with it.
Yeah, great. And so when I first heard the story, that the main thing that was going through my mind that I really wanted to know is like, how in the world did you get into this? And what's your story? So I'd really like to talk about that a little bit. You know, what did you do when you were younger? Were you always studying physics when you were younger? How did it all start? Tell us your story, Seb.
How far back do you want me to go?
All the way back from when you were born.
Oh, good Lord.
Tell us the whole story.
Well, I'll start a bit later.
Okay.
How did it start?
What do your parents do, for example?
I cannot claim to, people often have these sort of stories when they come up on these sort of panels. It's like, oh, and I've dreamt about this for my whole life, and I was just made to do this kind of thing. Not me at all.
Were your parents scientists, or were in the space? No
scientists. No, not at all. I was really bad at school. Really bad. I think I've told you. I mean, it's being recorded. I don't know if I should say this, but
what did you do?
I wasn't very good at school. I was probably not the best behaved kid either. But there's the story where I had a physics teacher who told my parents it is physically impossible for me to ever understand physics. Full stop. It would just never work. So very clear about how good I was. So and I think that was the sort of interesting thing where I had no interest in science. I was told I'd be really bad at it. And I think it's, some school changes and whatnot helped to kind of get me on that path. And there were some really great teachers involved, which is also why I'm passionate about teaching, because I think that's really the way to have some amazing impact on someone's life, right? And some teachers really had some good impact on me. And they kind of got me into science, a little bit into physics, but I never thought I'd have a career in that. At some point, it maybe became clear that actually I might be okay at it. I'm not quite as bad at it as people told me. But it was never really, the sort of weird story is I then went to university. I went to Sussex University actually, and the reason I did physics was just because I thought, well, okay, I want to go into the business world, and if you can show that you can do physics, you probably can show that you've got an analytical mind. It's a great first step. That's how I got into physics as an undergrad. And I stuck to my guns. I left after I graduated in physics and went into business and did some management consultancy in Germany for a while. I'm German, so naturally to go over there. And then realized that maybe it would be nice to actually have a PhD. And if you want to do a PhD, you better do it when you're young and you haven't got used to earning money. And PhD students are quite poor. Support them if you see them. So I thought I better do a PhD. And that's really when I got into quantum, because I did a PhD in quantum. And over time, I could see that there might actually be some commercial applications on what I was working on, which got me really excited, because I always had this sort of commercial mindset, but I was okay at physics, so I had this sort of conundrum. And then during my PhD and postdoc, I was really lucky to stumble across stuff, and it led to some of the work that you've described and some other work, and it just became clear that we're onto something. And I stayed. I then got a faculty position offer, and at some point spun out University of Quantum, and here we are.
Amazing. I love that story.
Weird story.
Yeah, that's great. And then so how did it, obviously it's amazing that it's that spun out of Sussex University. It's such a great win for the region. What about like funding in this space? There's clearly a lot of funding for innovation, but how did you find it with Universal Quantum, and also with Sussex University in terms of funding for this type of stuff? Was
academic funding or commercial funding?
Both. So yeah, starting off initially with just getting it started. Did the university have a lot of funding in this space, or
I think academically, there is funding involved. I think always more is better. You can obviously see your tax money is being well spent. So it's always great to get more funding there, and that's needed. Commercially, I mean, deep tech startup. There's a certain set of investors who focus on that sort of area, who you're going to have to convince. And I think quantum is, and especially quantum computing, is making that sort of leap, that sort of quantum leap out of the dark spaces and becoming more interesting for more traditional investors as well. I think that's really exciting, and they're the sort of people we're talking to as well, because people are seeing that the timescales aren't completely outrageous, and we've got the sort of proof points and traction that this machine can really be built.
Great. And then when you first started with Universal Quantum, so coming out of the university lab, did you have a team around you already? How did that all come together?
No, I mean, so there's two co-founders, myself and a colleague from university as well. The person who actually set up the lab at Sussex initially. It was just us. I was the CEO from day one, so kind of on me to get that going and get a team together.
And did you have to raise money straight away to get it going?
Yes, that was kind of business order number one sort of thing, to go out, talk to investors, get them excited about it, and that was fine. That was a lot of fun, I think.
Yeah,
we got some good investors on board, and then hired away basically.
Yeah, and just out of interest, in terms of like interest from investors, do you have? Is there kind of a difference between investors in the UK, Europe, America? What have you found?
Huge difference.
Yeah.
Huge difference. So I think, and maybe I have to be carefully again, but there is a different appetite, risk appetite, especially in the deep tech space in America compared to the UK and Europe, and that's a shame. I think you can go to an American investor with a great vision, and they love it and they support you. Here it's different. It's a bit more. Don't go too big, don't think too big, be a bit more the English way, right? Yeah. So I think, but we're seeing, I think that there's a little bit of a shift in the VC space in the UK. People are trying to adopt the good parts of the American model. But yeah, if you want to raise big money, usually our mind is like, okay, we definitely need to look in the US as well, which is a shame, and I think needs to change, because especially for this sort of technology, this has a sovereign impact in a way, right? You can't. Every major country, in my mind, at some point needs to have a sovereign capability in quantum computing. You cannot rely on America, China, or whoever to build these machines and hope that they will give you access to it. It will change so many things, so they'll probably close their border, so to speak, and be like, no, we're doing it ourselves, and that's it. Yeah. So a UK or a EU, US, etc., they all need to make sure that they support this sort of homegrown approaches. And I think that's where it's unfortunate that we as startups have to look abroad to get the right sort of funding to stay competitive to the Americans and other ones out there. I wish that would change.
And just on that, you talked about this kind of having access to this technology, once people applying it to all these different, great uses. What are the risks there if, one country has access to it, one doesn't? Like, what does that world look like if, only certain companies have access to it? Or, because I know you've talked about, wanting to make it accessible. But how does that world look like if only certain people can use it?
A pretty sad one, I think. I mean, it's so there's two things to your question, I think. I mean, one, there's a security aspect to quantum computing as well. One of the applications is code breaking, and it's already kind of understood that most of the codes that are used to secure, your payments and so on, quantum computers will break eventually, and there's a change in the security protocols that need to be made, and people are starting that. So it has a huge security implication, which is why certain security agencies are getting really worried about this, and there's other applications as well that they're worried about. So it's natural to think that they will at some point may well block that. They may block certain countries to have access to it if you're not a friendly anymore. So one needs to protect themselves against that. The other question, I think, and that's an interesting one, is, let's say we build this machine, there would be huge demand, one would hope, for that sort of machine, right? And there's only so much time in a day that these machines can run for someone. So the question then becomes, do you have an AstraZeneca or whatnot with very deep pockets come in and just block that machine for their drug discovery so they can sell very expensive drugs somewhere? Or do you say, well, but there could be this really smart kid somewhere who has a great idea and just needs that computational resource? How do you make sure you can kind of distribute this quantum power as fair as possible while obviously being commercial as we have to be? And that's where, our dream, obviously is to at some point set up a quantum foundation where we will make sure that we allocate time on these machines to these sort of fair, good causes. We can't do 100%, our investors will probably be pretty unhappy about that. But we need to find that balance, and that needs to be worked out. Yeah, for sure.
Interesting. So what about the rest of your journey to date with Universal Quantum? Just give us a timeline of when did you set it up, and the timeline of what you've achieved to date. What have been your biggest challenges as well along the way?
Okay, a lot of questions there. So we started about two and a half years ago, and yeah, I built a team. So we're about 33 now in the company, and we've just set up a base in Haywards Heath. That's where the new big facility will be. That still needs to be built.
Great.
These quantum facilities there, you don't just do it in an office, basically.
Yeah.
So that needs a bit of time, but that's really exciting. It's great to stay in the area, I think, and it's a great link to all the different areas we need to be at. And yeah, building a team, we're starting to build the technology, so we're heavy in a building mode kind of thing at the moment. What were the other questions?
What have you, well, you've told me what you've done today. Have you had any big challenges so far? Yeah, what obstacles have you come across?
It's never easy to start a company, right? It's the first time I've done it. I can't say I've got, lots of experience and I've done it 5 times. So everything you do is new, right? But it's great fun. So it's really, I don't really want to say it's really hard. It was a lot of fun, hard work, but nothing was like, oh my God, that was horrible kind of thing. I think and I had that conversation earlier as well, fundraising is always, you do so much of it and you just really want to focus on building this thing. It would be nicer if that was quicker, smoother.
Yeah.
But that's part of the game, I think. But no, it's been really great. It's been really nice to build a team from the ground up. They're awesome people. It's just a lot of fun, really.
Love that. And how have you found it as a leader with the company growing, quite significantly in the last couple of years? How have you found your journey as a leader of the team?
I had to learn a lot.
Yeah.
Always learning from those guys, right? They teach me a lot every day. And yeah, but I don't know if it's bad to say, but I'm just really enjoying it. It's just a lot of fun.
I can tell, yeah. You're having a lot of fun. It's great.
No, it's really good, but it is hard, right? And I don't want anyone to think who's doing a startup. I'm not saying it's easy at all. It is ridiculously hard, and you have lots of sleepless nights. But overall, it's just a really, really fun time.
Great. And what's next? What are you guys focusing on right now?
Yeah, so right now we want to build that one first machine that's really based on this blueprint that you've mentioned. That for us, the sort of key milestone after which we can start to scale these qubit numbers. So that's really the key focus for us right now. Once we tick that off, at least in our mind, sky's the limit. But we've got a bit of work to do to pull that off.
Yeah.
But that will be the sort of focus for the next couple of years.
Okay. And does that require a lot more raising and funding, or? Yeah. Yeah,
that's the hard bit. So it's really, really expensive what we're doing, as you can maybe imagine. And for that, you do need a lot of money, more than a normal traditional startup would maybe raise regularly in the UK. And that is a challenge, and that's why I have to focus a lot of the time on that at the moment to make that happen, because without the money we can't go anywhere. Yeah.
And what would you say have been your kind of, if we were to sum it up in a few key things that have helped you get to where you are today? I feel like one of them is just have fun so far from what I've got, which I love. Are there any key things that have got you to where you are today? You said it was fun and you've enjoyed it, but I'm sure we all know how difficult it is to set up a company, and there's a lot of things that you would have had to, obstacles you've had to overcome. Is there any particular things around yourself, your mindset, or principles that have kept you going and getting to where you are?
I'd love to reflect on that for longer than I have right now.
I know. What comes into mind?
I think the principle, it might sound cheesy, but from day one, it's actually not been tech first, but it has been people first. Like, we've been so strong on that. Like, when we hire, it's, they're all smart people, the ones we attract, but it's really making sure that it's a cultural fit, that there's alignment in how we view the world, how this should be built, and can they interact in the team the way we like to kind of work with each other, respectful, and just having like a family. That's really what you're doing there, right? So culturally, that's actually always been priority number one, and I think that made everything a lot easier, because when you go through challenging times, having people in your team you can have very open conversations with, and you just deal with it together in a way, right? It's not just me. I do the least amount of work really in that company. There's much smarter people there who really do the heavy lifting, and kind of being able to do that together is just really, really good. And I think it would have been a mistake to just go, look, I need the smartest one who has the best grades or who has the best track record. I think then we would have had certain problems, and we will most certainly have problems in the future if we were to go that way. So that's been one big thing. The investors is another thing, and thank you to our investors who are supporting us so far. They've been great as well, really supportive in helping us grow and give advice and these sort of things. So yeah, it's a huge team effort for sure.
Amazing. Great. And I've got one more question for you, and then we're going to go over to questions from the audience, so get thinking about what sciencey or businessy questions you want to ask Seb, we've got them here. I just really want to know, what does a day in the life of you look like right now? Like, what do you do from in the business from morning to evening? Are you tinkering and working on things? Are you mostly doing the business side of things? What does it look like?
Unfortunately, I'm not allowed to play with tech anymore. I think they probably wouldn't let me touch that. But it's a combination, right? So I still like to get involved in the tech from a brainstorming point of view, from talking about it, coming up with new ideas. I try to spend as much time on that as I can. At the moment, because it is fundraising time for us at the moment, it's a lot of talking to investors and getting that right. So that takes up a huge block. And then I do have that faculty position at Sussex, so doing some work there as well. We've got 26 people there, lots of PhD students to look after, postdocs and so on. So I spend time on that as well, of course. So it's no day is the same. But at the moment, there's a lot of investor talk. For sure.
Brilliant. Amazing. Great. Thank you for speaking with so much clarity and kindness to us newbies. That was great. I wish you so much luck with Universal Quantum. I'm so excited to see what you guys do next, and really exciting that you guys are based in the region. Please give it up for Sebastian Weidt.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.